Right. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us today to learn about ACE Basics. My name is Brian Bull, Vice President of Product Development. Today, you're going to be hearing from Shannon Cook, Vice President here at ASoft. So a few more details. These webinars are being presented as is without any editing. The webinar is being recorded, and after the meeting, we're going to send you a link so you can download the recording. All participants are muted, but if you'd like to ask any questions about anything that you see, do not hesitate to ask using the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. With that, I would like to turn it over to our presenter. Shannon, do you want to go ahead and share your screen and take it away?
Yes, thank you. Okay, go ahead and share. Okay, can you see my screen okay?
I sure can.
Perfect. So before we get started on today's webinar, for those of you that are new to joining us, I wanted to mention our website, showme.asoft.net. So here you can browse our library of previously recorded webinars. So if you'd like to check out our other webinars in the Discovery series, you can find them here, along with many other great topics. So we've got great topics like advanced webinars, as well as webinars on our different mobile apps and integrations. So be sure to check this resource out if you get a chance. All right, so let's go over to our step one discovery guide. So here we're looking at step one discovery. As Brian mentioned, we are reviewing ACE Basics today. It's the first of many foundational topics that we cover throughout the series. So, we're really just starting right here at the beginning of the process. And if we move down a little bit further, we can see the full list of ACE foundational training topics and sequence. And we're going to be starting with basics, but you can see the breakout here. So if we click on basics, for those of you that might be in a discovery with us, we've built and designed these guides for you to follow along in your ACE system to practice and just reinforce your learning. And of course, reading through the guides give you a theoretical understanding, but actively engaging with the system is really what's going to solidify your knowledge. And we've put a lot of work and resources into building out really user-friendly guides that teach you quite a good foundation of using the software. All right, so today's focus is on users learning ACE. We aren't talking about anything that would be unique to any particular business. This really is just all about the basics. I do want to mention that we are taking you through this journey using our web browser, ACE in the browser. It is in beta, so if we see anything unexpected, it is indeed expected. All right, so with that, we're going to jump over to ACE in the browser, and we're going to start by logging in. So we're going to go ahead and sign in. And the first thing that we are going to see is our ACE menu here. But we're actually going to collapse this and talk about this little note behind here. So we have this note that mentions that clicking the previous or next browser buttons will cause ACE to log out, as well as the refresh button will do that as well. So just something to make mention of. If you need to log out through the browser, that's how you can do that. And so I'll just kind of demonstrate that so people can see what that looks like. All right, and then let's go ahead and sign back in. Great. We'll wait for our ACE menu to pop back up. So this here is what we call our default menu. And these root level menu options are typically folders. So if you look inside of them, they're going to have additional options and chevrons that are going to tell you if you can go back or maybe drill in deeper. And then, of course, clicking a menu option will open a module. Okay. All right.
It's also worth mentioning that a lot of your users are not going to have that many menu options, right? We're logged in here as a system administrator, and so we have full access to the system. We can see every module, we can see every record, but a lot of your end users maybe are restricted to certain areas of the system. Maybe your shipping department is restricted to strictly the shipping log for incoming and outgoing shipments. Maybe AP department can just see purchase orders and purchases and disbursements, but they're unable to see invoices and receipts. So there's a whole mix of options here, depending on what the role of any individual user is. And of course, we're going to get into that later in Discovery when we talk about system administration. But I do want to point out that if it is a little overwhelming, logging in, seeing all of the different options, that's not going to be the case for most of your end users.
Yeah, and during the discovery process, which is really what these webinars are designed for, your discovery team has access to all of the modules so that they can explore and familiarize themselves with the system's capabilities. And then, like Brian says, once your company goes live with aACE, your team members will have, more limited access to the modules based on their roles. And their user group is really what drives that, because what's most important is we don't want the software getting in the way. We want it to be easy, which is why we design it that way so that you can limit the menu options if needed. And that doesn't mean that you can't necessarily access everything. That just means that those are typically your starting points. So just a little further explanation on that, but thank you, Brian. Okay, so let's just jump back here. Now, each module in aACE is a set of views designed to help you work with certain groups of records. So things like your customer and vendor companies, and modules are typically named for the kind of records they contain. So for example, if we click on CRM and sales, the second level that displays of module options are all related to customer relationship management and sales tasks. All of the modules do follow the same general conventions for layout and functionality. And we're going to show this just a little bit. We're going to go ahead and click companies. And just a very quick overview, and we'll be getting into the details in a little bit, but we can see we've got some key buttons up here, we've got some fields, and we've got some links down here at the bottom. And we can see that we've got the color purple, which is associated with CRM and sales. And then if we go to leads, we're going to see that module open up, again, purple, to associate it with that group. We've got those same key buttons, we've got some search fields and some quick search links, but you can see how similar the interfaces are. So really, once you learn one module, you're really set up for success to continue to navigate the rest of the system. So it's by design to be a really user-friendly interface. All right, so let's go ahead and close out that leads module. We'll go back to companies. Excuse me 1 second. All right, so let's talk about data types before we start getting into this list view that we have. So aACE categorizes data into two broad groups. So there's master data, which are records needed to conduct an exchange with another organization. So things like companies and line item codes. You may know them as product codes. We call them line item codes here at aACE. And then there's transaction data. So records documenting an exchange with another organization, such as purchasing from vendors, selling to customers. And then aACE uses these two data types to manage your business. What we see here in our companies module is our list view. And it presents a group of records that are associated with the module, and it's designed to help you locate the records that you need to work with. So you can build really unique lists to review, to update, to print, to share. A lot of different capabilities. You can even use this particular view to create a certain amount of records for reporting purposes even. So a lot of different use cases for this specifically. But each list view, like we see here, has a default view. And common default views include records that are assigned to you or all open records. So for example, the company modules list view is initially showing company records that are assigned to the current team member, which is me. I don't have any records currently assigned to me, so we don't see anything populated here. Nothing's displayed, and that's by design. So it's important to kind of keep these default views in mind because it can be alarming when you're new to creating records in a module and then you go back and you're not able to see the record in the list view. If it happens, it's just because there's a default view showing a filtered set of records, but you can easily locate it by using some of the search tools that we're gonna talk about. All right, so let's go ahead and populate the company's module list view by clicking that quick search link to show all the records. So now we've got some records. So we're not staring at a blank screen. All right, so across the top of the screen, we have this quick search bar, and that helps you search by these key fields that we have here. And these fields, of course, change based on the module that you're in. So here we have fields that are associated with the company's module. So we can search by company name, we can search by an abbreviation, any multitude of mix in between as well. And then across the bottom of the screen, we have what we call quick search links. And these let you run automated searches, as you just saw when I clicked that show all button. And it's very automated, and it's going to display only the ones that are linked to that quick search link. So for example, if I go back to find my companies, it goes blank because I don't have any assigned to me, or I could find companies with a certain amount of sales volume, etc. We're going to go back to
And in
show
this
all for.
particular example, like Shannon mentioned before, certain records have certain assignments, right? And that ends up being your default view when you open up the module. In the case of companies, it would be, let's say you're the sales rep or the account manager on that company. That would be part of your default view. When we talk about transaction modules, it would be things that are assigned to you. Maybe you're, again, the sales rep on a particular order. That would pop up into your default list view. If you're assigned to the order, if you're managing the order in one way or another, it would also pop into your view. And so it really depends on your role in the organization and the records that are being assigned to you. Um, and it's different from module to module. So again, as you're navigating around the system, you might have a blank list view in one module, but then a fully populated list in another module. So do keep that in mind. And again, if you open up a module and you don't see the data you need, of course, we've got the quick search there. That's an easy way to find the data you might be looking for, or any of those footer finds that that Shannon pointed out.
Um, in the system that we're looking at now, because it's our demo data, as well as discovery systems, they get populated with sample data just to help facilitate training. So as soon as you get access to your discovery system, you've already got data in there. You can get in there, kick the tires as quickly as you'd like. And then this process kind of walks you through creating some of that data, so you can start creating things that are familiar to you, so that you can see those things as you go along in this process and create your workflows. All right, so
It's also worth pointing out, sorry to interrupt again,
you're good.
that when you are going through discovery, if you say, you know what, it'd be nice to just have our data rather than working around the demo data. If you come to that point, a lot of times it's not the first discovery meeting or the second, but by the third or the fourth, you really want to start kicking the tires with data that looks a lot more like yours. What we can do is clear out the data, and then we can show you how to do, imports and exports and whatnot. So you can start loading your own data into the system. And we highly encourage that, because that's just one more way in which you're going to start working through the system and testing your own workflows using data that's a lot more familiar to you.
Yeah, that's perfect. And it's a frequent question that comes up when we're having our discovery meeting. So it's a great thing to highlight in today's webinar. All right, so let's dig around into this list view a little bit, and let's see how it functions, and let's explore some of the different features that it has. So your role in your organization might not deal directly with company records, but as part of a discovery team, it's important for those members to fully understand an overview of how records kind of connect and flow through aACE. And that just helps your team later on explain the ways that you need aACE to support the workflow. So it's by design. All right, so right now we've got all of the current records showing. One of the things that we're able to do is we have this column header up here. And if I was to do something like click the company name column header, it will then take all of the company names and sort them alphabetically. And if I was to click that again, it'll reverse the sort order. And you can use that same functionality with all of these different column headers that you see here at the top. If I was to click the city column header, for example, instead of the single ongoing list of companies that we see here, aACE is going to group the records according to the city specified on their contact information. So if I click that, we're going to see the city group is presented as a subsidiary list, and we call this sub-summarizing. So it's very, very interesting. You've got a few different views that you can work with, and you can kind of see how you can start working with these list views to maybe get to a certain point of data information that you're looking for.
And those
All right.
sub-summaries become especially important. Now, of course, there are uses here in companies and some of the master data um, modules because, printing this list, it's a lot more visually uh, easy to, understand, right? But in transactions, it becomes even more important because the sub-summaries are also going to include the numbers. So let's say you've got a list of orders and you're sub-summarizing by order type, and you've got 10 different order types in your list. Well, now you can start to see the total for each type right there embedded within the list view. And I may mention this in part because when we talk about reporting, a lot of times the list view itself can be considered a report. So if you're like, oh, I want a report on total sales for 2024 grouped by state, well, that's in one way that's a report, but in aACE parlance, that's just a list view with a found set and a sub summary. So discovery is in part a way for us to line up our terminology so that when we're talking, we can have fruitful conversations. So you might say report, I might say list view, I might say report, you might say analysis. So we do want to kind of line up our terminology just so we can have some really fruitful conversations about your business and about aACE.
Yeah, and then what's nice is if there's a specific set of circumstances like that that you're running over and over and over again, then of course we can look at creating a report for that specific search if that's something that you're doing frequently. But yes, that comes up quite a lot. Someone's looking for a report and it's like, oh, it's a list view, Nate. So let us show you how to do it. And then they're like, oh, that's perfect. So that's a really good point to point out. All right, so continuing on, we have up here a status column. So let's go ahead and click that, and we get a drop down with 3 options. So we have pending, active, and inactive that we can use to search for company record statuses. But I'm going to go ahead and click inactive. And you can see that that field actually turned yellow, and that just means that has active criteria. Some fields may be grayed out, and that would just indicate that they're non-editable and can't be changed. But let's go ahead and hit that search button. And that constrained the current list that we had to only the inactive companies, but they're still sub-summarized according to the city. And then these inactive companies, if you look at the right-hand side, they have this white circle here at the end of each list item entry. And that status indicator just indicates the record status. Say that 10 times fast. And then records can have different status indicators. You'll kind of see that as we go throughout. But if we go back up to that status column again, let's go ahead and select active, and then that's going to replace the previous search criteria with the active companies, again, still sub-summarized by the city. But now we can see that the active status has a green circle. We're all about color coordination here at aACE. You're going to see that a lot through our presentations. All right, so we've
I
got
know
that
I'm
green
going
circle.
off book here, but while we're talking about statuses, we should
Yeah.
talk about sort of the different types of records and the different statuses for each of them. So Shannon mentioned just a few minutes ago, we've got kind of 2 different record types. We've got master data, entity data kind of stuff, and then we've got transaction data. So entity records are either pending, active, or inactive. Pending records can be deleted. Active records can be deactivated when they're no longer in use. So those are the 3 options. Pending is yellow, active is green, inactive is white, as we just saw a minute ago. When it comes to transactions, those have a handful more statuses. They have pending, of course, and again, that's yellow. Those can be deleted quite easily. As soon as you open a transaction, it turns green. And then when the transaction is closed, then it turns white. And if you void the transaction, then it turns black. You might also see a couple of other colors as you're navigating around the system and creating your own transactions. Is orange means it's about to be due. Maybe it's due tomorrow. That would be the case of a shipment that's scheduled to go out tomorrow. That would be orange. And then red means it's past due. So an invoice, for example, that is past its due date is going to turn red. And so you can start to see how we're, like Shannon said, we love color coordination. We have these really key visual indicators so that you can very quickly hone in on certain problem records. You know, red is stop what I'm doing and take a look at this record, for example. So just a little preview of record statuses in the different modules.
Yeah, they're designed to be great visual cues, as Brian mentioned. So, and you'll kind of continue to see that through today's webinar and in the future webinars that we're doing in this series. You'll kind of see all of those different points that he spoke about. So stay tuned and make sure you sign up for those webinars. All right, so continuing working with this list view here, in the quick search bar, let's go ahead and select customer here on the left-hand side. And then we're going to go ahead and enter in, do New York. Now let's go ahead and search that. So what this is going to do is this is going to update the found set using the 3 combined criteria. So customers located in New York that are active records in our system. And so adding criteria in one field does not replace criteria in another field. So something to just kind of make mention on. And then at the left side of the quick search bar, we have this button here that removes all the criteria in the quick search fields, but does not update the found sets. So something to just kind of be aware of. If we jump down here to the bottom where we've got the quick search links, let's go ahead and run the find companies with X sales volume. And we're so new into this year, let's run the data on last year because we probably don't have much in there at the moment. So let's go ahead and up this to last year and do 24. Let's do 100 and let's click OK. So the display popped up. It prompts us to enter in the specific details for our search. We've made some changes. And so now what it's showing is only the companies that have sales volume greater than or equal to that amount that we entered of 100. All right, so if we go up to the city now and we say Chicago, on the right-hand side of this search button, we have our search options button. And if I click that, that's going to display additional methods for running searches. And for this instance, we're going to search that existing list that we already have by clicking search current list. And what that did is that further refined the results that were in our found set. So now it's reduced the number of companies, only displaying those, right, that are customers, that are active, that are from Chicago with that volume of 100 or more. So we just kind of continue to refine those results down. And so this is like a perfect example. If you were in a different module, like Brian was talking about earlier, you can end up with something more closely aligned to a report. All right. So now that we've got that, another useful feature is this related records option. So let's go ahead and click that. And this typically displays a list of modules that are likely to contain related records. So for this instance, let's just go ahead and click contacts. What that's going to do is that's going to open up the contacts module, and that's going to show us the related records for the previous companies that we had in that list. So here I've got 3 different contacts. I've got Ken, Gary, and Blasco from California Closets, Charter Steel, Trading, and Chicago Scenic Studios. If I was to go back to my companies, I can see that that closely aligns and matches the 3 companies that I had previously searched for. So no other data pulled in that wasn't relevant. It's the
So in other words,
record.
it's all the contacts that belong to each of these companies. So let's say California Closets actually had 100 contacts. Then those 100 contacts would be, transferred into that other list view when you say go to related contacts. And this is actually I mean, stew on this particular feature for just a minute because you can imagine how powerful this might be. Companies in context is sort of like an easy one to show, but imagine you are in a list of open invoices, but you need to go to the related orders to kind of see what the status of those orders are, or maybe you're in an maybe you're in line item codes and you want to go see the related inventory transactions to see why the balance of a particular inventoried item is what it is. And so start thinking about the use cases here. Companies in context for CRM is huge, but just bouncing from one module to another module without having to do a search and another search and another search and another search and another search is extraordinarily powerful. Because imagine if you had to open up that context module and say, okay, well, now I need to find the Chicago companies, and now I need to refine it and refine it and refine it, refine it. You can do your refining in the module that makes sense, and then just jump to the other one.
Mhm. Yeah, so perfect example is, we have these three companies here located in Chicago, and if I wanted to jump to the orders that are associated with those companies, right, I can clearly see that we have no open orders for them right now. All of their orders are closed, nothing that's new or active, but you can kind of see how you can start jumping around, and maybe I want to see the invoices that are associated with those. You can kind of see how you
There you
can
go. And there's your sales report for Chicago.
exactly. Yes. A lot of different use cases like Brian was talking about for that particular scenario for sure. All right, let's clean up my menu here. I will stop and pause for 1 second because while we do have multiple windows open, what's nice is all of your window handling is in your menu. So as you're opening modules, you don't have a bunch of tabs populating. All of your handling is in the menu. And if you hover over, it's going to tell you what you're looking at. So here we've got company list view. If I go up to invoices, it's the list view. But if I was in a specific record, it would tell me that record ID, the name of the record, etc., so that you can easily navigate to where you left off. And the other nice part is it's going to take you exactly where you left off. So let's just go back to companies because that's where we were. All right, so the majority of what we just talked about was the list view, but now we're going to go into the detail view. So aACE's detail view, which is what we see here, shows information that comprises of a specific record, and it allows you to capture a lot of data. And the data for the record is organized across all of these different tabs that you see. So we have multiple tabs here that go across the top of the screen, and then we have an additional row of tabs that might be found in the middle of your screen. Some of the modules have it, some don't. And then by default, the tab furthest to the left is what's active when you first open this detail view. So for example, the company's detail view and the company's contacts tab is what's initially displayed. So let's just kind of go through and take a look at some of this. So this detail view is what helps you create new records or edit existing ones. And you can edit most records after they've been activated or opened. However, it is easiest to edit pending records. So let's just go ahead and click edit here. Okay, so that put it into a edit mode where we can make changes to the record. Most of the fields, as you're seeing here, have this white background, which means they're an editable field. But this referral contact here actually has a light gray background, and that just means that you can't type directly into the field. So if we wanted to add a referral contact, we would use this selector icon here. We're not going to actually add a contact, but I am going to click it just so you could see. What we would be able to do here is search an existing contact and add them to the record, or we have this plus button here where we could create a new contact to then get them added to this record. All right, we're gonna go ahead and click cancel. Move this down, make it a little smaller. That returned to the record to read only without saving any changes. So you do have the ability to do that as well. But let's go ahead and create a new company record. Let's go ahead and hit this plus sign for new. And here we have a new company record, and it immediately puts it into the detail view mode where you can make changes to the record. So it's in an editable state, excuse me.
And some
One,
modules like this one have what we call a create mode. So this interface is slightly different than the edit mode that we just saw. So what we've decided is some modules, when you create a new record, kind of need a different set of fields displayed, because when you create a new record, that set of data might be slightly different than when you're editing an existing record. So right here, when you create a new company, of course, you can add the company name and you can set the abbreviation. You see down below, there's the type and the address and all that essential information when you're creating a new company. But it's also got this contacts portal right here in the middle, because when you create a new company, oftentimes you also want to create contacts at the same exact time. So we've established certain modules to have a create mode that's slightly different than edit mode. That's going to be the case here in companies. It's also going to be the case in leads. When your salespeople are creating new leads, they basically get, the prospect and a couple of additional fields, but then they just get a huge box to enter all their notes, because salespeople typically want to just kind of create a new lead, do a brain dump, and then kind of move on with their process. And then edit mode in leads is slightly different than that create mode. I just wanted to point that out because this is a little bit different than what Shannon just showed us in edit mode. And when we save this record, it's going to go back to what we saw just a minute ago.
oh yeah, that's perfect. Perfect call out. And in looking at this particular record that we're trying to create, you can see that we have a new color in some of the fields. We have this pink background, and that means it's just a required field. So it's required that there be information in there before aACE is going to allow you to open that record. And sometimes, because right now we've told it to create a new record, it automatically put us into that company name field. But if we were to click in the background, we can see that now that field turned pink, so we know it's a required field. So
And
sometimes
required
clicking.
fields must be entered in order to activate or open the record, right? So you can save some of these records without filling out the pink field, but we're not going to let you activate it. That's important to note, because a lot of times you might want to create the record, but you don't have that information yet. And you're going to go get it and you're going to fill it out. So there might actually be a lot of creating the record, leave it pending, add some more data, but still leave it pending, go back later, add more data, still leave it pending, because there's kind of a process when you're building out new company records or orders or purchase orders. And so we allow you to create the record and save it in a pending state, but we're not going to let you open it until all of that essential information is populated.
Mhm. And then we have little notes like this throughout aACE here too. So we have this note, leave blank to set with contact name right underneath the company name field. And that just is kind of pointing out how you can leverage some of aACE's automation for populating that field. So if we were to leave that blank and we have this contact information filled out here, it would automatically set it with the contact name as the company name. We also, Brian mentioned this abbreviation field in the upper right-hand corner. This field auto-populates with the next number in the default sequence, but you can use numbers, letters, basic symbols for company abbreviations, whatever you might need it to be for your organization. And then another example of that status indicator here in the upper right-hand corner shows us that yellow that Brian mentioned earlier, letting us know that the record is pending. Down here at the bottom under the company info section, we do see a little blue check mark here for use for billing address. And this flag is typically marked for a new company record, but you can, if we click on this billing address tab, it's going to display fields for an alternate address. But because we had that flag checked, you're not able to go in and edit those fields. So if we were to just jump back here, unselect that flag and jump back to our billing address, now we can see those fields are white and they are now editable, and we can create a different address there if we needed to. All right,
And if
let's
you
go ahead and
haven't sensed already, there is a theme when it comes to the design of these layouts, right? Is we're always trying to think of a way to give you a quick visual cue to let you know how a certain module behaves or a certain field behaves or what might be required or what isn't required. And these are just kind of design philosophies that we have established over the years.
yeah. Okay, well, so let's go ahead and create one while we're here. So let's just do textbook Empire, and we're going to create a vendor record. So we're going to click type and we're going to choose vendor. All right, we're going to click save, and that's going to trigger aACE processes to validate the record. And as long as we have all of the required fields filled out with acceptable data, then aACE is going to prompt us, like we see here, to activate the record. So let's go ahead and activate it.
And if you didn't get that message, that means something about the record is invalid. And I point that out because that's actually another cue as you're entering data. If you create an order or a purchase order and you save it, every module should prompt you to either activate it or open it if it is valid. So that's kind of a quick and easy way to be like, okay, I just saved this record. I did not get that message. So now I automatically, very quickly know that the record is invalid in one way or another. Then if you were to
Yeah,
do actions activate or act or open, it'll give you a detailed message on what is actually invalid about it. So
yeah.
another little trick to keep in mind as you're creating new records.
That's perfect. And I'll actually show that. We're going to make another company record. So I'll leave something out and we'll show you what that kind of looks like. I think that's a great idea. So here we have our active record, and let's just kind of click through the other tabs so that you can see what the fields are that they contain, because there's a lot of information there that's going to be relevant kind of as we continue on through these series. And you kind of obviously we created a vendor company here, so we probably want to pay close attention to the vendor details tab. But here we can fill all of the company details under this tab here. This is a vendor record, but if it was a company record, we have our sales and marketing tab, which has a lot of great relevant information. As you can see, as I switch between this company detail tab, these tabs in the middle here changed when I clicked sales and marketing. So now you've got some tabs here that are related to sales and marketing. So something to just kind of point out.
And
Customer
I know this isn't
details.
a CRM webinar, this is more ACE basics, but I might as well point it out, is a lot of other systems don't allow you to have a company and a customer that's also a vendor and a vendor that's also a customer. A lot of times it's two separate tables. They make you create a company record and then that separate vendor record. But ACE combines that data into a single company module, and you can have someone who's both a customer and a vendor because oftentimes you do run into situations where you're buying things from people you're also selling to.
Yeah, and you can see we have a type here, customer/vendor. So if this vendor ended up at some point buying things from us, we could update that type to customer vendor and fill out any additional relevant information that we might
Yeah, just
need.
taking a little opportunity to throw some shade at our competitors.
I love it. All right, so you know what, let's go back. So we have the company details tab, and then we've got some tabs here at the bottom. We have contacts, we have locations, you can have child companies, we have linked contacts, linked companies, and any lists that company might be associated with. And then the sales and marketing tab, like we were just talking about, we could see our list of leads, any orders that might be open, any recurring transactions, because you might have a particular customer that buys from you on a monthly, quarterly, semi-annual basis, and any important dates you want to capture. In the customer tab here, you also have obviously lots of details up top here. We also support blind shipping, so that's another tab. And if that's something that piques your interest, go search drop shipping on our Show Me website. And then down here at the bottom for this particular tab, we've got sales history. You can see orders for the company, for that customer, invoices, receipts, and then the vendors tab, because obviously we've created a vendor. We can set up all of the information here, and then we could see their list of products, any existing purchase orders, any purchases, disbursements. So you can kind of see it all gets housed together. And then of course you can drill down and around. If we had active records here, we could actually drive into a disbursement. We could drive into a specific product or purchase order right from this screen, which is really cool. All right, and then we've got our finance and accounting tab. So just a quick little drive around so you guys can get an idea of the amount of data that aACE really allows you to capture, which is quite a lot. And then
And in
another
about
useful
30
feature.
seconds, Shannon just breezed through 1,000 features. I would point out here two things I want to point out if you don't mind.
Yeah.
One is that some of the modules have access privileges behind those tabs. So in this case, you can actually turn off access for sales and marketing, customer details, vendor details, and or finance and accounting by user group. So if you just want to restrict a particular group of users to only see that main company details tab so that they can't see finance and accounting, that's entirely possible. The other thing I want to point out is just kind of a training methodology, maybe, is go into companies as you're sort of learning the system and working with us through discovery and just kind of take a look at all of the different fields because a lot of the fields might have automation behind them. They might just be the tip of the iceberg of a larger feature set. And so kind of use this as a place to start exploring different areas of the system where, if you click over to vendor details, and you see a default template for POs, think to yourself, oh, I wonder what that is. And then you can kind of bring it to the table and we can talk about it, or you can search the knowledge base to get more information. In this case, if you wanted to have a template for every single PO that is created for Textbook Empire, you could do that here. Maybe you buy the same thing from them every single time you place an order with them, and you just want that initial setup for that new purchase order to be done automatically. That's what that feature does. So you can start to see that this is a good place. It's like a good jumping off point for a lot of features that you might want to explore more during discovery.
Yeah. I mean, to your point, even these preferences here, right? So we've got some preferences here that talk about drop shipping and you haven't gotten there yet, but that might pique your interest and be like, oh, what is drop shipping? Or, hey, we do drop shipping. We know what that is. You guys support that? That's great. Walk us through that. What does that look like? So yeah, a lot of jumping off point conversation can be had from just kind of digging into the fields that you see on your screen here. But just wanted to give a quick view of the different tabs and the data points that are in there that you can capture. All right, so let's create another record, but this time let's leave some required information out so we can kind of see what that prompt looks like. Okay, so let's create a customer now. So let's do Days Middle School. All right, and we're gonna forget to choose our type. I'm gonna go ahead and hit save. And we get this validation error, and it says that this company cannot be saved for the following reasons, and the company type is required. So it's not going to allow me to move forward, and it's giving me the exact information that I need in order to successfully activate this record. So we're going to click OK. We're going to go back to our type. We're going to select customer. We're going to click save, and then now we're going to see that aACE has ran through its processes, and now we get that message that we can activate this company record if we're ready. I do like to point out this not yet button was one of my favorite things when I was first starting to use aACE because I would use it as like my double check. I would always click not yet first to just let me go back and look at that and make sure I had it right. But because I
That's
said not
that's
yet,
actually
you
a
can
really
see
good idea.
I used it all the time that way. It was always my double check point. I would always say not yet, go back, do a quick review. Sometimes I would catch things, sometimes it's ready to go, and then I move forward. So, but we can see here because I said not yet, now your view looks a little bit different, right? We're in that detail view, we're in that edit state that we can go into, and we've got this pending record. So now I can go to edit. Oh, it did save it. Never mind. It did activate it. Did it not? No, it didn't. Active. Make it active. Now we're active. Okay. So I've actions, activated it. Here we go. We've got an active customer record. Okay. All right. So now that we have our vendor created, we have our company created, let's go in and just update our address for one of these. And these can be real addresses. They can be uh, fake addresses, whatever you need for the discovery piece of it. And then let's just throw in a postal code here. What's nice though is if you are using a real postal code, aACE will autofill the city and state information. So as soon as I click out of that, we can see it auto-filled out Troy, Michigan, as well as the postal format being American. And I can go ahead and hit save there. So just a nice little feature set. Oh, this is a nice message. So the address for this company was updated, and do I want to update any related records that are associated? So you have the option of saying not yet or yes, but it also says that this will update the address and related payment accounts, open pending recurring transactions. It tells you where it's going to update that data, which is really nice. We don't actually have any data in there, yes, but I'm just going to hit yes. And it said no records were updated.
And the idea there is, of
Okay.
course, maybe you have a bunch of orders out there or invoices and you do change the address. This is giving you the opportunity to update those related records because by default the address kind of sticks when you create those records. Obviously, there are circumstances where you don't want that address to be updated, so you would click not yet. So do kind of think about that every time you get that message, just to make sure, oh, okay, I've got some open orders and I do actually need those addresses to be updated, or you know what, I need the address to be their old address because they're moving locations and they're still accepting shipments to their old location. So let's keep those transactions as is.
Yeah. And so at this point, if you have any additional information that you want to include on your vendor or company records that you've created because you're following along with the discovery with us, you can feel free to edit them accordingly by kind of going through those tabs and seeing what fields are there, starting to fill them out, start getting used to the data that you can capture. But what I'll mention is that is it for today's webinar. We covered actually quite a bit in this short period of time. But I will take a pause, see if we've got any questions that we might need to tackle. If it's your first time joining us, usually it's a little quiet sometimes, and we'll get questions after. But we'll see if they're happening.
Yeah, this is the webinar. People are kind of stewing on the things that we show them, and they don't quite have questions yet. And I don't see any, so I think people have been following along pretty well.
Yeah, we try to keep things short in the intro for basics because we don't want to scare everyone away with a 90-minute webinar because we really could talk about aACE all day long. Um, so I'll stop sharing. I'll pass it back to Brian and he'll take us out. But if you are interested in joining our next webinar on purchase orders, please sign up. We'd love to have you.
Awesome. So, if you are interested in looking into any of the other webinars that Shannon showed us at the beginning, do visit our website, showme.asoft.net. There you can browse our library of previously recorded webinars. You can see our entire discovery series, as well as any of our advanced topics. And that is it for everybody. Before we wrap up, I do want to thank everybody for attending. You're going to get a link to this recording so you can watch it again or share it with colleagues who couldn't join us today. And of course, if you do think of any questions that we didn't cover, you can always reach out to us at sales@asoft.com and we'll be happy to give you an answer. And of course, you can sign up for future webinars at asoft.com/webinars. Thanks again, everybody, and enjoy the rest of your week.
Bye.
Bye.